I got out of the Coast Guard in January of 1960 and came back here and started to go back into my photography thing and started doing some photojournalism work for magazines. I shot the Jazz Festival, shot the Laguna Seca races and some other things. And then there was a guy named Grover who had a little educational film company in Carmel Valley, and he said, "Do you know how to operate a movie camera?" And I said, "Of course I do. Just give me the instruction book and I'll do just fine." And so I started doing educational films for him, and I started making these films about poetry and literature and writers, and wound up working with some people at Tor House to do a couple of films on Jeffers. He was gone by that time. He died in '62. And, but in the later 60s, I did a couple of films on Jeffers, did a couple of films on Eric Barker, the poet in Big Sur, a good friend of Henry Miller's, and quite a bit on writers and artists. Did some art films for Zantman Art Gallery. And one thing led to another, and I wound up working with a company called Lee Mendelson Productions in the mid-60s. I was lucky. Of course, you make your own luck. I made a little short film in 1967 called Seacoast. Everybody told me I was rather stupid to spend my own money on a film for myself. But I took it up and showed it to Lee Mendelson Company in Burlingame. They were famous for doing all the Charlie Brown Peanuts cartoons on TV. And they were starting a new unit to make TV documentaries about science and buildings and creativity. And I took a film up and showed it to their top man, and they said, "Well, we're doing a film down in Big Sur at Esalen," and that was turned out to be the country of the one that I told you about. That we went down there called "Come to Your Senses." That was a feature-length film. Rod McEwen did the music, and they liked my work, so they started. I did some work on Travels with Charlie with Henry Fonda. I did some of the local shooting here for that in '68. And then they started doing a lot of TV specials for the Encyclopedia Britannica, and it was called The Unexplained, about knowledge and exploring the edges of human knowledge. And one of couldn't be done about engineering projects that were supposedly impossible. It couldn't be done, and The Unexplained were two one-hour specials that we did back-to-back in the late '60s. And we interviewed Jonas Salk, Ray Bradbury, people in the Enrico Fermi Institute in Chicago on the continental drift and DNA situation, and we photographed people all over the world. They sent me to South Africa to interview a man named Colin Taylor, who was just trying to discover the languages of the dolphins, and he was recording a mother and father with their baby, teaching them how to speak, down in an oceanarium in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. And they sent me all over the United States. I spent a lot of time with Ray Bradbury, with different people in science fiction. Spent a whole week with Buckminster Fuller on his island in Maine, talking about things that he thought was going to come in the future. And then the one on It Couldn't Be Done was all engineering projects. Lee Marvin was the host of that, and Rod Serling was the narrator on that one. And it was about the Golden Gate Bridge and the Verrazano Narrows Bridge and all the dams, Boulder Dam, and which became Hoover Dam, and all the dams and canals. They sent me to Buffalo, New York to find out where the old Erie Canal was. Well, I found out there is no Erie Canal from the old days. It's all been rebuilt. And it was all swamps. I'm sitting out there wondering, what do I do now? And so I found an old guy that ran the archive at the local newspaper, the Morgue they call it. And he had all these old tintypes and old photographs of what the original canal looked like in the 1800s. And he let me photograph all that. But so you have to dig, you have to get in and really look for things. And I was freelancing for them all the time until finally they put me on staff for a while. For a couple of years I went on staff in Burlingame, and they just had me on the road constantly. It was terrific. I loved flying. They realized I didn't suffer from jet lag, and the minute they found that out, they sent me out all the time.